church. Happy Sabbath. So, my name's David Aspa. We met Mark and Art and their wives at the Chetwynd family camp this summer, beginning of end of August, actually. So, I shared my testimony with Mark, and he wanted me to come here and share with you guys. So, here I am. Title of the sermon is Seek and Ye Will Find. I thank you for the reading of our Bible verse this morning, because it truly is part of my story, really. So I'm 41 years old. I was born and raised in Prince George, British Columbia. Married to my wife, Jody. We have 3 children, 3 daughters. 17, 16, and 13. We got married in 2013, but we got together in 2010. This story is my testimony, but truly it's God's testimony, what He's done for me in my life. This is God's story and not mine. It's for what He's truly done and led in my life, even when I wasn't a Christian. So I want to give all glory to Him. So I was raised non-Christian in any way, shape, or form. My family background is spiritual. So believing in things like reincarnation, psychics, tarot card readings, ghosts, ancestor ghosts, things like this. Ouija boards, but we never played with the Ouija board. We weren't allowed to, thankfully. Had enough problems without a Ouija board in my life. Went to Catholic school from grade 5 to the middle of grade 10. And then I went to public school after that. I never believed in Jesus or the Bible. Actually, I wasn't a very big fan of the Bible at all growing up and as an adult. I remember one year my wife's daughter, our middle child, got a Bible for Christmas, and I wasn't actually very happy about that. So that's kind of where I was spiritually growing up. But I always searched for answers. I always wanted to know where we come from. I didn't really believe in I can't remember the word right now, a little nervous, sorry. Evolution. I did not believe in evolution. I believed in the ancient alien stuff, and I got pretty deep into that. I was interested in occult things, UFOs, ghosts, and our origin, but I did not believe in a biblical origin at all. Before I was a Christian, I was very much into music of the world, heavy metal, dark heavy metal, rock and roll, things like that, country music, all that. The last concert I went to was in 2019, and that was in Edmonton. It was a 2-day heavy metal festival with bands whose names I won't mention here. They don't need mentioning. But it was very, very satanic. Growing up, I've always encountered ghosts. They've tormented me. They'd move stuff, they'd hide things, they'd attack. When I was living in Calgary, lived in a house that was haunted. And that was a scary place to actually live. They'd run around the house and beat on walls and things like this, and you'd feel them around. But I didn't know what they truly were at that time, because I believed in ghosts and all that. Isaiah 59:1. Oh, no, sorry, not there yet. When I came to the understanding of death and the resurrection and everything, all that stopped, as God said it would, that He is faithful and the truth will set you free. And since coming to the truth 4 years ago is when I started searching, all that stopped overnight. I haven't had one encounter, one instance, nothing like that has happened. My wife lightly experienced it, but not very much. But God is faithful, and He freed me from that. That's just a real brief summary of my background, where I've come from. Again, zero Christian background. In Isaiah 59:1, it says, "Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened, that it cannot save, nor His ear heavy, that it cannot hear." In 2018, I left my job. I was working for Praxair as a truck driver. I left there to make more money for the city of Prince George. And so I started in the city of Prince George in 2018. In 2018, my wife needed major surgery, and she opted to have it done at the BC Women's Hospital in Vancouver. And so we went there, and we stayed a few nights at her aunt and uncle's house, who's, some of you know them, Sheila and Richard Wasgen. And so for 4 nights, Richard proceeded to give me a Daniel seminar. At this time, I am not a Christian in any way, shape, or form. I wear leather jackets and biker boots and rode my Harley and listened to heavy metal and things like that. And he had these till late at night, at least past 11 o'clock, I think sometimes close to 12. Jody would go to bed and we'd be up talking. And I was open to the discussions because I always had an interest in occult-like things, origin and all that. And so I didn't reject him, and I heard him out. But I didn't leave convicted at all of anything. I just thought it was really neat information. But seeds were definitely planted at that point. And it was not long after that I went to that heavy metal concert. And after that, God kept putting Christians in my life constantly. At work, we'd have many discussions because I worked in a afternoon shift, which ended at 10:30, 11 o'clock. So we'd be out around the city filling potholes, and you can have a lot of discussions with each other at that point. They were always theological, and they'd give me their perspective on the Bible and Jesus and salvation, and I would give my perspective on ancient aliens, because I was pretty deep into that. So it was really aliens versus Jesus going on there, and apparently Jesus won. I made a close friend with a man named David at that time. He's older than me. He's in his 60s. He was from the U.S. He's a Sabbath keeper, but not an Adventist. And him and I were good friends. And we'd have many discussions. And COVID came along, and he moved back to the U.S. Before he moved away, he gave me his personal Bible, and he wanted me to read that. So he gives me his Bible, and he moved away. And then I started reading it. I started because I'm one of those completionist people. Even when I was playing video games, I was always a completionist, had to do everything. So I started at Genesis, And I tried moving through the whole Bible. I got to Deuteronomy. But I wasn't convicted yet. But I was looking and I was asking. And at the same time, vaccine mandates were starting to roll out. And that's what really got me looking. And I started looking in Revelation, but I couldn't make heads or tails of Revelation. I didn't know what it was talking about. But I was worried about the vaccine, everything being mark of the beast, all that type of stuff, because I didn't have that understanding yet. And at this time, I'm truly asking God, because I'm reading these things. I'm like, Lord, I want to believe, but there's nothing making me truly believe. And then Richard, Jody's uncle, sent me a link on my phone. It was a Doug Batchelor link called From Daniel to Revelation. Now, I'm a really big history fan. I love ancient history. I love Greek history, Roman history, Babylon, all that stuff. I loved it. And so I watched this. And when he laid out for me the prophecies and how they've come true, I already knew the sequence of events, but I didn't know it was prophesied in the Bible. And that's when it hit me that this book is real and this is the truth. So I started to become truly convicted, and I was watching a lot of Doug Batchelor sermons at that point too. And my wife wasn't a very big fan of that because she didn't marry a Christian. She married a rebel. I've been a rebel my entire life. And we had a few arguments, you could say, discussions, definitely. But she was not happy, and I think she was worried she was going to lose me. So I had to put our marriage on the altar of sacrifice at that point because I couldn't turn away from the truth that I learned. It was too powerful. It was too real. And so I put our marriage on the altar of sacrifice. I remember I told God, look, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I will lose my wife or my kids or my life even, really. But I wouldn't be the first Christian to lose all that for your truth. And so I left it in his hands. And I never pushed my wife. I would read, I'd do some studying, I'd watch sermons and stuff, and I was learning. But I never pushed for her to read or anything. I would share little things here and there, but that was about the extent of it. So then, the city of Prince George mandated the shot. And I was convicted not to take it. I don't judge anybody that ever took it or didn't take it. I was just convicted, I cannot take this. And I became convicted also from Daniel, the health message in Daniel, and how they stood by their conviction and how God was faithful in their lives for them, how they became 10 times wiser and is with them in the furnace and with Daniel in the lion's den. And so the city mandated, and they said you could try for a religious exemption. So I tried. I got a letter from our church, but it wasn't enough. I had meetings with HR about my conviction and why I didn't want this shot, trying to show her my religious point of view, my beliefs through the Bible, why I don't want this. And I ended up giving her Revelation and Daniel seminars. for a couple hours. And she told me she was raised Catholic, went to Catholic church every weekend, but she'd never heard this much Bible before in her life. So I pray seeds were planted with her too, because those were some truly wonderful discussions, even though I didn't get to keep my job, but God's ways are better. So my wife at this time isn't convicted, but she was standing by my side. We could possibly lose our house. We had a mortgage, beautiful house, beautiful area, and she understood that this was the path I was going on, and she stood by me. We even had discussions about we may have to put our house up for sale if I can't find a job. I had a job offer with YRB at the time to do highway maintenance because I was driving plow truck in the winter for the city. But I couldn't keep the Sabbath consistently because they're 4 on, 4 off. And I remember Jody told me, then you can't take that job. It was around that time where my wife started doing Bible studies with her cousin, the daughter of Richard and Sheila. They did the Amazing Facts online Bible study together. So I remember it was my last week of working at the city. I still didn't have a job. And I was sanding a road, Northwood Pulp Mill Road. And I was asking the Lord what to do. I didn't know. I didn't have anywhere to go. I had put resumes out, but nothing was really coming. And then I remember him telling me, I could hear clear as day in my mind to call Callum. Callum was my supervisor at my previous job. So I called Callum. Callum and I were always on good terms. I left my job on good terms. I did my 2-week notice, and I worked faithfully for them. I never put them down. And I called him, and I said, hey, Callum, how's it going? He's like, not much. What's up, man? I said, do you need a driver? He said, yes, I do. So I said, well, if you'll have me, I'll come back. And he said, well, I would love to have you. Let me tell Cheryl, our manager. He tells Cheryl, and Cheryl said, yeah, bring him back. Now, Praxair at the time was just merging with a company called Lindy, and that's what they're now called as Lindy. And they had a mandate that they were not hiring unvaccinated people. But Callum and Cheryl stood up for me, and they told them to bring me back in spite of. And they did. So they fought to take me, and the city fought to get rid of me. And Cheryl was always worried I was going to go back because the city was my dream job. I absolutely loved working there, and I always wanted to work there. But I assured her, no, I'm not going back. They put us on permanent leave. So I still technically had a job there, but I wasn't working for them. And when they finally lifted the mandate in the city, that's when I quit. I gave them my resignation once they said we could come back to work. But God is faithful. I ended up making more money at my old job than I was making at this city that I left it for. I started Bible studies with the pastor in 2021 I was baptized in May of 2022, and my wife was baptized along with our youngest daughter in 2023. Matthew 16:25 and 26. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? The Lord definitely looked down and pulled us out of the fire, out of darkness. In the world, I thought I was just a regular person, a good person. I mean, wasn't a thief, wasn't a murderer or a rapist or anything like that, but we were not living a godly life. And he came down and he opened up. And when I was willing, he brought me in. Deuteronomy 7. Should have had this marked. There we go. Deuteronomy 7, verse 8 and 9. But because the Lord loves you, and because he would keep the oath which he swore to your fathers, the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Therefore know that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations with those who love him and keep his commandments. God is faithful. And I thank him every day for bringing me out of that world and bringing me into under his wings. It's brought me here to you. I've met so many wonderful people, more church families, and couldn't be more thankful. I thank you for bringing us here this weekend so we could share my testimony. Thank you, Mark, for bringing us. So that's my brief story on how God has led us out of the world. And he still has a great work to do within me. But I look and I thank God I'm not where I was, but I'm not quite where I want to be yet. Not till he comes in the cloud of glory. I thank you for having us. And may God be the glory. Amen.